Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just to go back to yeah, I mean, you were really heavily involved in SOW in the staffing industry before it was cool. I don't know if it's cool now. I think it is, but really in the early days of it. And the fact that you came from a true services procurement background is quite rare. That was kind of ahead of its time. You got a lot of the kind of larger MSPs now trying to bring in that sort of talent, trying to have that kind of capability. But that must have been there must have been some scenario. It must have been great, but there must have been some scenarios where what you were saying fell on deaf ears, where maybe some staffing organizations, it was so early in the game, it was difficult for them to get their head around it because their core business was such a big area of growth.
Yeah, no, look, and I can remember having conversations with some really great staffing firms who also had development shops and could do project work. And, they wanted to get on the list, right? And they had the mentality of our program and other programs that I was aware of how do we get on the SOW, the project list. And the reality was staffing and project work are different from soup to nuts, from beginning to end. And so I can remember working with our suppliers because we wanted them to be successful on this SOW side if they had capabilities that we could leverage, because then we could negotiate more favorable terms when they were supporting two channels. So we really worked on, how they branded themselves, and subsequently part of my independent contractor work was consulting with staffing firms on how to position themselves with procurement stakeholders. And really, the key messaging was you needed to brand yourself slightly differently. You can't go into talk to procurement about doing projects and services for 500,000 to $1 million and rely on your individual placements, at 50, $7,500 an hour. The hiring managers were different. The process was different. The underlying objectives were inherently different, right? When you come in and you have a particular skill set on your resume, you're delivering that skill set in a staff aug setting. That's great. It's important. But when you talk about SOW, that's a unique scope of objective and scope of requirements that the company is looking for. They're looking for results. They're looking for deliverables. So it didn't land well when staffing firms would go in and talk to procurement stakeholders about their project work without really tweaking their message to be more procurement focused, more project delivery focused. And they tended to lean too much on their staffing success, which, don't get me wrong, staffing success is wonderful, but it really doesn't mean a whole lot on the procurement side when you're talking about projects and services.